no introduction today, let's just start the yap. So, Nidus got a retouch for some reason, not Ember, not Corvex? Sure, but whatever, he needs some of that anyways. All his abilities, including his passive stat gain, got a varying degree of changes. I'm not going through all of them this time around because it's basically explained by everyone at this point. But what I wanna focus on though is my concerns about this retouch. There are exactly 4 issues I had with the retouch Nidus, with the first one being his first ability. It is undeniable that if I try enough, I absolutely could force this ability to deal damage, but it still doesn't change the fact that it alone just barely does anything meaningful, nor provide something else that really complements the idea of Nidus outside of just stat gain. If we don't talk about the augment teaming virulence. Even when it is showcased on Death Shot 100, I'm just not impressed by a slight bit. The damage is still very whatever, even with the lingering spikes. The issue with virulence is that damage is mainly what it gives, and damage is easily replaceable because everyone has it. It still does not change the fact that you use this ability only for stat gain, and there's hardly any reason to use this ability when your stat is full. Hell, there's hardly any reason to even stack mutation Lamau, but I digress. But Emily, it has energy refund. What energy refund when half of his abilities don't give a damn about it? If it wasn't the fact that Teaming Virulence and Parasitic Vitality actually want you to cast this ability, you don't even cast it. Nidus' strongest build, aka the most goated strength buffer known in this game through Bright Bonnet plus Parasitic Link, barely interacts with mutation stack anyway, and now with its stat cost removed, there's even less reason to even care about mutation stacks. Speaking of mutation stacks, this is exactly where the second issue lies. Mutation stacks themselves barely had any meaningful interaction with Nidus, even after this retouch. It feels like just a meter that you need to stack to full, and then nothing else. No reason to give a damn about it, no reason to pay any modicum of attention to it, nothing except death gating and parasitic vitality augment, which the latter has replaced the former. Giving Nidus double the max stat count, meanwhile not giving a concrete reason to interact with mutation stack, basically renders the change irrelevant for 95% of the case. Even if your 1 and your 4 scales with their damage through mutation stacks, the damage they dishes out is so irrelevant, you might as well pretend that they don't exist. In short, Nidus lacks a strong, concrete interaction with his most important resource, aka mutation stacks, and this retouch is absolutely not helping. There's no further interaction other than just quote-unquote more stack equals to more power to something, and that is such a shallow and uninspiring use of power such as this, and it is nothing but missed potential. Speaking of missed potential, let's talk about Ravenous' healing strength. At Death Stream 100, I don't see much increase to Ravenous base healing to a point that it starts to matter. Despite provide a crucial stat that Nidus demands, the amount it gives is so inconsequential to Nidus himself, and even more so for parasitic vitality builds, that you might as well pretend it doesn't exist. When Nidus has more than 30k health to spare with Arcane Grace percentage healing, aka you are seeing at least 1.8k health per second, even if I assume that it now has a base of 40 per second, what does 100 healing at 250 strength even mean in this case? Nothing. If you are not using Parasitic Vitality, which I don't know why you don't, you are not using the healing either, because there are also much better way of healing, aka Panzer Vorpavila with Hunter Recovery, Research Bar Augment for Paris Prime, Life Strike on melees, and so on. Each of these easily put the healing from Ravenous to shame. There's no reason to bank on Ravenous to give you the healing amount enough to sustain the damage from enemies, even more so after a certain level. Even with the range scaling and more maggot spawn, the value of this ability just isn't high enough for Nidus unless we are talking about Insatiable. Although the new status cleanse is nice for Nidus and his allies when he is linking to an ally or companion, but at the end of the day, the value just ain't there, bro. And lastly, his fourth and final problem. This frame is fucking augment heavy, bro. Nidus without any of his augment just feels so much worse to play. Nidus doesn't have any gun buff potential, doesn't have enough survivability so that you are forced to deathgate, and just don't gain stack fast enough. And not to mention that if you want the best out of the Parasitic Vitality builds, the buff Abundant Mutation now matters even more because it now gives 300 instead of 200. So like, If you want the best out of Nidus, his maximum potential, you are looking at installing a baseline of 3 augments. 4 if you want to stack the 500 mutation stack faster via Insatiable, because contrary to popular beliefs, despite his tool gain a strength scaling to mutation gain, it is strictly on kill, and relying on that is just not realistic. Last time a frame is this augment heavy, he is called Frost. Nidus is 100 times weaker when you don't install 3 augments at the very least. Teaming Virulence because he is not very capable at ability DPS, so he needs to rely on weapons. Parasitic Vitality and Abundant Mutation for obvious reasons. And if you want your life to actually feel better, you are 1000% running Insatiable, because now the stack count is at 500. If you try to take any of these off, it immediately feels awful because you just lose a very significant amount of power or QOL that makes him competitive outside of being the strength buffer, and this retouch only forces him to value all his augments even more, and obviously turn him into a frame even more reliant on augments. TLDR, these are the 4 issues I had with Nidus Retouch. Nidus' first ability is still not competitive enough to be considered as a main damage dealing source when compared to weapons. Outside of stack gain, there is no reason to interact with this ability. Nidus have very little reason to interact with the mutation stacks outside of first synergy such as Undying Passive and Parasitic Vitality. The current implementation of mutation is very shallow and provide nothing but quote-unquote more damage to something. The healing department of Ravenous is still irrelevant after buff. Set amount of healing for frames like Nidus is very little in comparison, and you better off rely on other sources that is much stronger and less friction. Nidus is incredibly augment heavy, even more so after the retouch, because half of the must-have augments for Nidus are buffed to be even more valuable. Nidus is far weaker when augments are not present, and that limits what Nidus can really opt for, because most of his mod slots are occupied by augments. So what are my humble suggestions for these 4 problems? For Virulence, it needs to have additional scaling through something like a DOT. Even a 25% base toxin status chance that scales with strength and mutation stacks, like giving 0.125% more base toxin status chance per stack of mutation, up to 25% more to a total of base 50% status chance, would immediately turn Virulence into a much better DPS tool that in some way also helps players deviate away from relying on weapons, thus relying less on teaming Virulence if they want to dish out great damage. Not to mention that this also plays into the Larva buff, where stat gain on kill is scalable through strength, which means that the buff actually matter instead of being incredibly perceivable in this current iteration of Retouch. Speaking of stack gain, I would like to tackle the second and third problem at the same time by proposing a simple but could be difficult to implement change. Ravenous now has a hold button function. By holding down the button, Nidus will turn invulnerable after 0.5 seconds and start to drain all the accumulated mutation stacks by 50 per second, until there's no more to drain or the player let go of the button prematurely and casts Ravenous that is much stronger than usual, where it scales accordingly to how much mutation stack you just invested. Ravenous gain 1 base healing per second, 0.1 second more base duration, and 10% maggot damage for each mutation stack invested, to a maximum of 200 base healing per second, 20 second more base duration, and 2000% more maggot damage, or 500 more base healing, 50% more base duration, and 5000 more maggot damage if you have abundant mutation equipped. The healing and duration gain are added on top of the existing values before their respective scaling like strength and duration, but the mega damage gain is a fixed value and cannot be affected by anything. Speaking of, the previous maggot scaling per mutation stat on cast is removed, and raise the damage from 150 to 1000 with a guarantee plus proc. This change aims to incentivize a stronger cast for damage, while allow it to function normally at lower stack scenario since the previous synergy is replaced by a new one. This change not only allows the player to have a meaningful interaction with mutation stacks, it incentivizes the player to make decisions. Do you wish to bear the risk of having a much better, much stronger, much more long-lasting Ravenous by investing in a significant amount of mutation stack, but in return, weaken the output of Virulence and lesser health max from Parasitic Vitality for a short while? Or you are bold enough to simply all in for the fat amount of power, or you simply do not wish to interact with this and would rather settle for just a Tapcast Ravenous? The choice is up to the players. As for the last problem, you could try to inbuild some of the Insatiable's benefit by allowing a fixed 50% chance of an additional stack while gaining 1. But if you wish to have more of that, you could slot in Insatiable Augment for the additional 60% that scales with strength. By removing the constant need of 2 augments by increasing the output of his 1 and add a bit of Insatiable's benefit into his 4, this should help alleviate his problem on relying more than intended amounts of augment to feel great. I'm not gonna lie, whether you like it or not, but Parasitic Vitality absolutely deserves a tad bit of nerf, from 4% to 3% per stack. You will still get more in total with the new mutation count, even though it is just slightly. That's all for the concerns regarding Nidus Retouch. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, like the video if you had the time, and yeah, see you all next time. Goodbye.